Fantastic, right? So I just want to finish this on just a quick overview of the few different determinants of health that are often cited. We've gone through quite a lot of them already in terms of the different stuff that we've covered, and we will definitely be covering these again in the future, right? But there's a few that are often cited, and I'm going to go through these purely because you'll see that a lot of this stuff is within your control, but you'll also see that a lot of this stuff is outside of your control, right? And it does all impact on your actual health at the end of it, right? So the first thing is income and social status, right? Now, parts of that are inside your control. A lot of it is outside your control as well. So, we have to be aware of that it influences your health. 100% does, right? Social support networks. Again, some of that's inside your control, some of it's not, like if people just don't like you for whatever reason, like you're, I don't know, an untouchable in Indian society or something, it's like, you don't even exactly have this great social support network, right? And your education and literacy, like that literally can directly kill you. You can have poor reading comprehension skills, read something wrong, take too many pills, and die on the spot. So that kind of stuff is important, or road work ahead and you just blast out into traffic because you can't read. Employment, working conditions, again, they impact on your health. This is obviously relevant. Like you definitely will see this throughout your career in medicine as well, Gary. It's like your employment, working conditions, you're basically sacrificing some of your health as a doctor to benefit others, So again, you might not be thinking of it in terms of like, yeah, you work in a coal mine. Obviously, your working conditions are not going to be conducive to health, but it's also in every other career as well. Like you could be a pilot and you've got this circadian shifting all over the place. You're also exposed to radiation up there because, there's less ozone, what am I saying? There's less air basically up there, less protective stuff between you and the sun, So different things like that we have to be aware of, right? Your social environments, like do you socialize? You might just be someone that's a very common thing. Like I live in London, so I see this all the time. People will literally go to work, and nowadays it's a lot of work from home, and then all they do is watch TV afterwards. It's like that you didn't socialize with another human that entire day. Your physical environments, what are they like? Obviously that's important for your health, personal health practices and coping skills. And that's a lot of the stuff that we focus on with our coaching in terms of like, let's get your personal health practices in a good place. Coping skills, that kind of goes along with the coaching process itself. A lot of that is also outside of our scope in terms of you might need psychological support. Healthy childhood development, again, you're kind of fucking shafted if you just had a poor childhood development. Like, and a lot of that is just completely out of your control. Like you were just born into a certain circumstance, your biology, your genetics. And again, we talked about that. You might have it like a single point mutation, and now all of a sudden you have this inborn error of metabolism that, completely changes your whole life. Like, again, like we said, briefly touched on it, that phenylketonuria, like you might have that and now you're not able to have any phenylalanine, right? And you might be like, oh, that's fine. But that now influences a whole host of other things in your life. Okay, yeah, you can get it under control, but now you're never able to have like a Coca-Cola. You have to look at the different food sources that you have. You probably eat a lower protein diet, so maybe you're not able to build the muscle mass you want to. Maybe you don't reach higher levels of growth in childhood because protein intake is, very highly correlated with childhood growth. So all these other things, and that's just a single point mutation, right? Healthcare services, what are they like in your area? What are they like in your country, etc., right? Your gender, this stuff does influence your health. It's a determinant of your health for a variety of reasons. Again, we'll talk about them in future. Your culture itself, right? Again, you might come from this real macho culture that goes, I'm never going to go to a doctor. I'm not going to go see a doctor about whatever health issue. And as a result of that, you have poor health outcomes because you never actually got anything tested. You never actually interacted, even though you should have. You're like, oh, this mole on my arm, it's looking a bit all over the place. It's been growing and it has no defined edges. And you're like, nah, it's grand. Like someone that cares about their health would go to a doctor about that, right? So a lot of those practices, as you can see, they're outside of your control as an individual, but there are also a huge amount of things that are inside your control as an individual, right? And this will become really apparent and really obvious when we do go through the different, things that humans die of, right? Because that really brings this home in terms of, oh, there are some things that are really protective that we can do and are relatively free a lot of times, that'll really profoundly influence our health, right? And this is why we generally focus on sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management as our foundational, these are the things that we care about, right? And if you go through the last 2 years or whatever of the podcast, that's what you'll see us talk about. You're like sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management. We constantly come back to them, and we're going to keep coming back to them for the next 10 years as well, right? Because they're so foundational for your health. And again, you can get really esoteric and look at these different things, this molecular pathway or whatever. But if you don't have those 4 foundational pillars, we'll call them, sorted, it's kind of irrelevant. You need to get those lifestyle practices in place, right? And they kind of need to be in place first. Well, that's not necessarily true, before you can really start encompassing all the other stuff in terms of your relationships with others, right? And I've said this before, but if you're starving, you're literally hungry, you're cranky, you probably don't have the best relationship with other people as a result of that. So that's impacted by our nutrition, but it's also impacted by our sleep. If you just underslept chronically, you're not giving the most to those different social events, socializing, your friendships, your potential love interest, whatever it is, right? So it comes back to looking after yourself so that you can really start to get all the other determinants of health in place, and you can really start to get a broader view of the analysis. Because it's like on a plane, if you have a child with you, they always say put on your mask first. The reason is because you can be fumbling away putting on your child's mask, not get it on, and then the two of you die because you're not breathing, they're not breathing because you didn't get their mask on properly. You weren't able to re-secure their mask when they ripped it off because they're a fucking child, and that's what children do. So you need to get your mask sorted first. And it's the same with this. Once you get yourself sorted, you get these fundamental, pillars: sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management. You get them sorted, and now you're able to tackle all of the other stuff, all of the other determinants of health, and also all of the different levels of analysis we could go through, right?